New York Times, of course, knew about Harvey Weinstein's behavior more than a decade ago. They did nothing. They killed the story. NBC did the same thing. They had the story in their hands, written by Ronan Farrow, nailed down completely. They killed it anyway. Countless actors were silent. Even Hillary Clinton took 5 days to comment. She's close friends with Weinstein, says she's a champion of women around the world, but didn't stand up for them in this case, and neither did the Obamas. It's a theme on the left. They haven't stood up for women in this case. Why is that? Mark Steyn is an author and a columnist, and he joins us right now. So, Mark, I mean, let's note the obvious paradox. This is the home of women. This is the party that wages war on their behalf when the Republican Party wages war on them, and yet actual women were being abused by this guy, and they enabled it and protected him. What's going on?
Well, there's actually one anecdote, one vignette in Ronan Farrow's New Yorker piece that sums up not just Hollywood, but I think the Democrat Party, the Clinton Democrats' attitude to all this. Harvey Weinstein is at the Cannes Film Festival, and he runs into Emma Decaune, a French actress. I was actually on telly with her dad about 1,000 years ago. And he asks Emma Decaune to lunch. And at lunch, he tells her that he's just optioned this book, and it's got a strong, independent woman role in it that she'd be perfect for. And she says, "What's the name of the book?" He says, "I can't remember the name, but it's up in my room. Why don't you come up and I'll give it to you?" So they go up to his hotel room. He steps into the bathroom. He emerges from the bathroom entirely naked in what I'll discreetly call a priapic state. And that's progressive values in Hollywood in a nutshell. Oh, I'm totally committed to more roles for fierce, strong, independent women, and I'll consider giving one to you if you come up to my room and sexually service me. That is actually the Harvey Weinstein story, and to a certain extent, that is also the Clinton Democrat story too.
Well, it's literally the Bill Clinton story. It's literally so.
That's right.
What is this psychological transference? Is the people who are committing the crime accusing their opponents of being guilty of the offense because it's somehow a way of expiating their guilt? I mean, why is it that people always accuse, the left always accuses its opponents of doing the exact same thing they're guilty of? Have you noticed this?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually worse than that, because if you notice the things that the left gets annoyed, if Mitt Romney, who is nobody's idea of a sex fiend, and he happens to say that as encouraging women to apply for a job, he phrases it rather clumsily, and he says binders full of women. All these late-night talk show hosts, everyone, he's a punchline for 2 weeks afterwards. Dear old decent Mitt, because he's a stiff who stands up when a woman enters the room and holds the door for her as she leaves. Meanwhile, they're completely heartless about the huge mountain of human debris piled up by this Hollywood pig over the last 3 decades, and I think it goes to the fact that they're actually willing. It's the old line about communism: you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. Right. And in this case, Harvey Weinstein's the guy who made Shakespeare in Love, and if he were talking to Shakespeare, he'd say you can't make a Hamlet without breaking a few chicks. This is the necessary collateral damage.
No, this
is the necessary collateral damage, as they see it.
They love humanity but mistreat people. It's always in the abstract. So you are seeing, even now, we could not get anybody from Los Angeles, and I know a lot of people out there, to come on and talk about this. You got to kind of wonder, at what point does Hollywood come clean and admit that Harvey Weinstein is not an aberration? He's not, I mean, he may have been the most piggish guy you've ever heard of, but he's not an anomaly out there. I mean, do we ever get to kind of reform that culture?
Well, I think that's very interesting. I mean, Harvey Levin was saying a couple of minutes ago that there's no actual crime here yet for the FBI to investigate.
Just rape allegations, no big deal. Yeah.
Well, but there are certain other oddities here. For example, the Miramax head guy in Italy was a guy who knew nothing about movies and was paid 400 grand a year to procure broads for Harvey Weinstein. That's ultimately, I don't know whether that business expense went to the revenue agency in Italy or here in the United States under the parent company Disney, but that's certainly something to investigate. If you look at the way the Weinstein Company ran, he had a modus operandi. It would be a female staffer who would call up the young actress and invite them to a meeting, and the actress would think, oh, it's okay, because I'm not going to be alone with Harvey Weinstein, there's going to be this other woman in the room. And after 10 minutes, the female employee would withdraw from the room, leaving the actress there to be attacked, physically attacked, by Weinstein. That's systemic corruption in the Weinstein Company.
That's right.
And that's why it isn't just one man. There is something to investigate. That's what's corrupting about it, and that's what ties it to the Democrats. Because just as Hillary was an enabler who ran fraudulently as a feminist, so these enablers in the Weinstein Company present themselves as a progressive feminist organization.
Exactly. I'm coming to the conclusion that feminism isn't sincere. Just throwing that out there. Mark Steyn, great to see you tonight.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.